I want to talk about setting reasonable expectations going into software engineering. Or I guess really just having healthy expectations starting the job. Because honestly, it's really easy to go on Reddit and read a lot of threads and create this image in your head about what you think the job is going to be like and what you think you're going to be making when you first start out. And then you get that perfect image in your head, and then you start the job and it's completely different, and you're making like a third of what you saw the salary on the thread posted to be. And I'm guilty of that because I looked at all those threads too. I looked at all the salary sharing threads I could find. I looked at all the day in the life videos and all that stuff. Because I was in school and I was excited to start the job. I really was. I was excited to take what I like to do, which is program, and be able to make a living off that essentially. I found myself being a little surprised by what reality was versus what my expectations going into it were. I found that I found that I had set unreasonable expectations for myself and for what I thought it was going to be. And I still feel this now, 5, 6 years later into the job. I still feel like I set unreasonable expectations for myself that almost leave me feeling like I didn't do anything that day, or make me feel like I didn't accomplish much the past 2 or 3 weeks, which isn't true. And despite receiving positive feedback, I sometimes still feel like I'm not accomplishing what I set out to do because I'm setting these unreasonable and unhealthy expectations on myself. Simply, maybe maybe due to comparison on social media, or uh, maybe I just simply haven't worked in this long enough to have healthy and reasonable expectations. Whatever it is, I wish somebody would have talked to me about that. Or honestly, I wish there was like a class or something about that to help people move from school to software engineering as a job. Because I think when you're in school, you're used to, you take a test, you get feedback on it, and then you're done. And then you move on to the next assignment, next essay, presentation, whatever it is. That's not how a job is. And that's especially not how software engineering is. Software engineering is basically like a never ending essay that you constantly are revising and getting feedback on, but you never get a grade on it. You always are submitting it and receiving feedback, but you're never done with it. And that can really mess you up in the head, because if you're used to submitting an essay and you get it back and you got like an 85 or 95, whatever it is, you're done. There's no resubmission of that. That's it, and you can file it away, throw it away, forget about it, and not think about it again. That's not how software engineering is. Software engineering is basically you save all the essays you write, and you're never done with them. You have to be able to pull them back out and basically get your head in the same place as to when you were writing that essay originally. And that's quite difficult to do. And honestly, that's one of the harder aspects of the job, is just remembering all the nuances of the code, and what stuff does and why you wrote this logic here versus doing it that way. It's very difficult. And so, as far as expectations, I had in my head the expectation that I was going to be making just revolutionary software, you know, every year. And I had set expectations that I was going to be refactoring, the entire system, 2 weeks into the job, or I was going to be writing all these new services or refactoring everything to make it so much better. When in reality, it didn't really work like that. You start small with small features and then kind of grow from there. And you might get to rewriting major parts of the system later on in your career. And you might get the opportunity to design a new system or a new API or a service. That will inevitably come just with enough time, or enough companies. But that's not going to be all the time. And I think I think I still put that pressure on myself to. I still feel like I need to be doing that all the time, when I know that's just not true. Um, and I think that it's hard to understand that, especially early on, because you feel that pressure a lot more. Or at least I did. I felt like when I started, I felt like I was like one bad pull request away from getting laid off or, not being able to advance in my career. That's how I felt because you read all these horror stories and you read all this crazy, uh, things, on Reddit or wherever it is about, people's experiences at companies and just you know what I'm talking about. You've read all these articles and everything, and so I had that in my head. So I felt like I couldn't make mistakes, and I felt I had just unhealthy expectations. And honestly, I wish that those have gone away, but I felt like they have now shifted from just pull request expectations to now more broader system design expectations, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm not accomplishing much unless I'm like making substantial changes to the system and making it better and refactoring and doing all that stuff. Adding value, if you want to word it like that. That's how I feel. That's how I feel now. And I feel like I need to improve my own expectation setting. And maybe there's a book about that I can read. Maybe there's papers or something to help me think about that. But looking back on it, I wish that I had a little more. I wish I had a healthier frame of reality entering into this job originally, because it's easy. You see somebody on Reddit, fresh out of college making 130, and then you get an offer for 55, and you're like, what? Wait a second now. But this person over here is using that technology too, and they're making this much. Um, there's a lot of factors that go into that, and that's probably, as much as I hate to say it, that 130 out the door is probably not going to be your experience unless you happen to live in one of those areas that pays that, and you happen to work at one of the select companies that pays the top dollar amount for junior devs. Most companies, at least what I've seen on the East Coast of the United States, do not pay that. And it's easy to feel discouraged when you see the number that you're offered. And you had this figure in your head, and there's such a large discrepancy. It's not just pay though. It's your expectation about working remote, your expectations about hours worked, technologies, frameworks, and everything. It's difficult. I understand. Sometimes you can think that you're going to be working on the cutting edge, using the latest frameworks, and using all the cloud services. When in reality, your first job may be using an on-premise VB.NET application or something, something similar. So you have to be really open, I think, to what the first opportunity may bring. I would say that you can't be super picky, especially on the first job, just because you got to start somewhere. Obviously, you can be picky about some certain things that you need to be, but overall, I think that setting healthy expectations is very important, and it's something that I wish I had written down earlier rather than later. I wish I had made a list of what I think it is going to be like, and then make a list of all the things that I actually think it's going to be like, if that makes sense. Because I think you need to be real with yourself and say, yes, programming is fun, and it's my hobby right now while I'm in school, but when I exit school, it's going to turn into work, and it might not have the same feel as it once did. If you've ever, done any kind of art, music, woodworking, it's fun when it's a hobby, but sometimes when you try to make money doing it, it kind of ruins the experience because it strips away that just pure creative energy that you had with it, and the your pure freedom to express yourself through that hobby, and it makes it just work. And I think that that is the most difficult thing about switching from school to full-time software engineering is it takes your hobby and makes it work. And sometimes that doesn't work out for people. And I had a really difficult time because of that, and I had a really difficult time making that transition. And I honestly, 6 years later, I still have a difficult time with it. And to be honest with you, I don't know if that's going to go away. I hope it does, but sometimes I just have to accept the fact that what I once called a hobby has now turned into work. And with that, I think it's stripped away some of the creative energy out of it, which is unfortunate, but maybe that's life. Now, I don't want to say that I don't enjoy it, but I think I enjoy it for different reasons compared to when I was just doing it to purely learn the craft. So that's all I got for today. I'll see you in the next one.